guys, I'm Carissa Nelson, the Media Communications Manager with Illinois 4-H, and we're so excited to bring you a new video series called 4 Things You Should Know. So we'll bring you different topics, just 4 quick hits, something that you should know. Today we're talking 4 things that you should know about alleviating the path to food insecurity ahead of our May 15th Food Action Summit. I've got my Clover background up so you can see I'm representing for Illinois 4-H. Sorry if it's just a little bit buggy there at the top, but I'm so excited to have Dr. Craig Gundersen as our first guest. He's a distinguished professor and director of undergraduate studies in ACEs, and he's going to walk us through 4 paths to alleviating food insecurity, and we'll put information on how you can join the conference and learn more on this topic if it interests you at the end. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Gundersen, thank you so much for joining us today for our first episode of 4 Things. We're so excited to have you here. Before we start, could you tell us just a little bit about your background and your research?
Sure. So Carissa, thank you so much for having me be a part of this conversation. It's an important topic, and 4-H is great, so I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about this. So my name is Craig Gundersen, and I'm the ACEs Distinguished Professor in the Department of Agricultural and Consumer Economics at the University of Illinois. I've been at the University of Illinois since 2008. Prior to that, I was at Iowa State University, and prior to that, I was at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So my research concentrates on the causes and consequences of food insecurity in the United States and on the evaluation of food assistance programs with a particular emphasis on SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as the Food Stamp Program. I've been doing research in this area for 25 years now.
Wonderful. Well, we're so glad to have you here. And today we're talking 4 paths to alleviating food insecurity. And we don't want to take away at all from what you're going to share with us at the summit, but we thought this would be a good path if anyone's thinking like, is this right for me? What kind of information can I expect to get out of it? We thought this might be a good teaser for what people can expect from your talk at the summit and the summit overall. So we are ready. Can you walk us through 4 pathways to alleviating food insecurity?
Sure. So I'm really looking forward to talking more about this at the 4-H Summit. This is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to talking to all the people who are so passionate about this topic. So, food insecurity in the United States, what we talk about is when people don't have enough access due to inadequate financial resources to have enough food for their families. Okay. So this is what we mean by food insecurity. And during the presentation, I'll talk more formally about how that's defined and everything. But for today, as I want to talk about 4 things that I think we need to think about whenever we're talking about alleviating food insecurity in the United States. The first is the fact that food insecurity was a big problem before COVID. It's going to be a big problem long after we've forgotten about COVID, even if we don't do anything about it. And it was a slightly bigger problem during COVID. In other words, food insecurity is not a COVID issue. It's a much broader issue. It's been going on for a long time. We really need to think carefully about how we alleviate food insecurity at all time periods. That's the first point. The second point is that in work that we've done in conjunction with Feeding America, which is the network of food banks across the United States, is we have something called Map the Meal Gap, which provides county level estimates of food insecurity in the United States and for selected areas, zip code level analyses. One of the things we've learned about this and thinking about food insecurity is, even though there are some one size fits all solutions that I'll talk about in my 4th point, is there's a lot of differences across the country that we need to begin addressing. As an example, is if I could show, like map of the United States, is if you look at like North Dakota, for example, overall very low rates of food insecurity, but there are some really high rates of food insecurity in 3 counties there. They're all American Indian reservations. So the ongoing challenges facing American Indians. Or to cite another example closer to home is, as many of the people will know at this conference, is that Cook County has a long history of racial segregation. And one of the manifestations of this that we've seen when we did zip code level analysis is that, in majority white zip codes actually have very low rates of food insecurity, whereas the majority Black zip codes have really high rates of food insecurity. So this racial disparity due to the history of segregation in Chicago, again, this location-based analysis is, we will be talking about some of this. So that's the second point, that geography matters. The third point.
Real quick question can I ask you a quick question on the map? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So does that help then if if leaders are like, there is a problem, there isn't a problem, they can really drill down and see, like, if you think there's not a problem, maybe there's a pocket of a problem, and to not ignore and take a really broad swath with it. That's really interesting.
Right. So, and in particular regarding that is that, for the readers, I mean, for the listeners, not the readers, the listeners who are paying attention to this right now, if you're interested, it's just Google map the meal gap, and you can see for any county, where you live, what the food insecurity rate is, what the food insecurity rate amongst children is, what the average food price in that area is. Lots of really neat resources there. And one thing you'll see is that every single county in the United States has food insecurity. So no pocket of our country is immune to the problem of food insecurity, but you will see that there's an enormous amount of variation across that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thanks for letting me jump in. I appreciate that.
Of course, feel free to jump in whenever. So the third point that I want to emphasize is the really, really high rates of food insecurity amongst people with disabilities, whether it be a child with a disability, or it be a parent with a disability, or somebody older in the household with a disability, is far and away the best predictor of food insecurity in the United States is whether or not somebody in the household has a disability. It's a better predictor of poverty, unemployment, and all these other things. And the reason I mention this is I think that in our society, oftentimes we don't look carefully at the serious challenges facing those with mental health and physical health disabilities. In fact, we find in our work that the key not in our work, but in the work of many of the other great people doing research in this area, that's mental health disabilities that really is driving this result of higher rates of food insecurity amongst people with disabilities. So again, just like we need to look at geography in many ways, is we also need to look at how we're going to address the challenges facing people with disabilities, whether it be challenges of getting to the food store, whether it be challenges of having to spend so much time caring for a child with disability, whether it be a challenge with managing day-to-day tasks due to mental health challenges. All these things need to be considered, and I think that that's the third thing that I think we should think of. The final thing in terms of alleviating food insecurity is, what's my favorite program, is SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as the food stamp program. There's a lot of government programs that don't work, but this is one that does. Study after study after study has shown this is a remarkably successful program at alleviating food insecurity. Essential goal is to alleviate food insecurity, and it succeeds at this. So if it wasn't for food and SNAP, we'd have much, much higher rates of food insecurity in our country. And in particular during COVID, if it wasn't for SNAP, we would have had much higher rates of food insecurity. So I think maintaining SNAP as this great program, and it's received bipartisan support through the years, I think that we need to continue this. And actually in my talk I'm going to talk about a couple of ways we can expand SNAP to make it even more successful. And I'll talk a lot about why this is such a successful program and we should continue to support it. So those are the four things. A, food insecurity is a problem before and after COVID, along with during COVID. B is we need to be cognizant of the geographical challenges, geographic differences across the United States in terms of food insecurity. C, we need to really concentrate on making sure that those with mental and physical health disabilities are food secure. And the fourth point is it's got to have SNAP as at the forefront of all these efforts to address this. So those are my four for the 4-H summit that I'm going to be talking about. And I really am looking forward to meeting everybody at that summit. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much for your time today. And we're so looking forward to your talk on the 15th. We hope that this gave you just a little preview of what you can find if you join us on May 15th. And I'll put some information in the video caption too for Map the Meal and how you can find out more information about the conference too. So thank you again.
Hey, thank you, Carissa. See you later.